All right, good evening, everybody. This is Nicholas Peter. Right now I'm with Josh Segerson from World Alternative Media. And I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pleasure meeting you.
It's nice to meet you, yeah.
And so yeah, I just have some few questions. So the reason why I came to Philadelphia was to do the workshop with Mark Passio. I wasn't able to attend the conference, unfortunately. But what are your thoughts on Mark Passio and natural law? Have you looked into any of his
So yes, I've looked into that. I've more looked into the subject of natural law quite extensively over the years. I've come up with a few different ideas of what natural law really means, because I'm not one to believe that things are necessarily intrinsic. I find things are very subjective, and I feel like we can discuss good and evil and morality versus immorality, and is it subjective or is it an objective fact? And I find that it's the same as value, and this is something I get in trouble a lot for. When I say there's no such thing as intrinsic value, it's all subjective because it depends on the individuals that we're talking to. So when I hear people say, well, gold has value because gold is physical, I say, well, then in the same way, Bitcoin has value because I traded with someone and someone accepted that value and they traded with me, and for that reason, we both mutually decided on a value. Now, when it comes to rights, this is something that gets a little bit out of a lot of people's comfort zones, because I don't think there is necessarily rights unless you defend those rights. So the second you are defending something, the second you say this exists, I believe this exists within me, and you cannot take it, then you are starting to defend it. But if someone is able to take that right away from you, say, if you speak, we'll throw you in prison. If you say something, if you do certain things, we will restrict your free will, we will shoot you, we'll put you in a cage, kidnap you, extort you, whatever it might be, then you start to get into subjective territory, because, let's say 51%, collectivism, 51% decides you don't have that right, and you don't defend that right as a free individual. We're talking about freedom here. It's a lot of complaining, but it's much better to actually, defend those rights. If we're talking about, 51% says you shouldn't have that right, and you say, oh, well, that sucks, but what can I do because the government's coming in and taking that right away from me? Well, if the government took that right, it's not a right anymore. It doesn't exist. You don't have that right if they took it, by definition. So I don't think it naturally occurs as much as it is defended naturally by individuals who believe subjectively, I have that right and I will not let someone take it away from me. Just like government thinks they have the right to restrict our free will. Well, we would obviously say, no, they don't, but they do. And so obviously, by definition, once again, the government does have that right because they're literally using that right against us right now. So I don't think things are as intrinsic as many people point out, just like from value to rights. I think it all comes down to what we agree upon. I often make the point that, colonizers would go to Africa and they would take the pearls and they'd give the people in the tribes scraps for those pearls, but those people in those tribes were like, I don't see value in these pearls. Well, those colonizers did, and that's subjective value in a nutshell. They'd go to their land and they'd sell it for much more. In the same way, you can say, a monkey doesn't see value in gold. Or in the same way, you can say that, for example, when you walk down the street somewhere and you tell someone, hey, there's a homeless guy, here's a sandwich, for example, and he says, well, no, I'd actually rather have money, and all too often it's usually for drugs, alcohol, and that kind of stuff. He would see more value in that than I would see in alcohol or drugs, right? I mean, everything. Mark Dice is a great example. He used to walk down the street and offer a chocolate bar or a piece of silver, and so many people would take the chocolate bar, and most of us are scratching our heads going, no, that's worth so much more in FRNs, right? But to those people, they're like, what, silver? I want a chocolate bar, right? Subjective value. Everything that we see is subjective, morality included. I just think there's a vast majority of us that would agree, killing people is wrong, raping people is wrong.